الحمد لله رب العالمين والعاقبة للمتقين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. I pray and hope each one of you is in the best state of health and Iman. Hope you're doing well. Welcome to the After 8 lesson, and it's very important because there's a lot of reaction that's uh, happening with these horrific attacks that have taken place in Southport, and I'm just trying to get the actual real reason. Let's get to the bottom. Two children. Okay, so the headlines are still the same. Two children dead and 9 injured in stabbing attack at Southport dance class. So, as I mentioned, that we begin by remembering the families and the victims, and our prayers and thoughts are with those who have fallen victim to this horrific act of terrorism, and we pray and hope that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala jalla wa ala, He grants them sabr and a full recovery. So JM is back. Welcome back, JM, to our live stream. So my definition of terrorism is anybody who harms an innocent soul physically, emotionally, would be seen as an act of terrorism. And let me just regurgitate, as I was mentioning in the post 14 class that I was teaching, which is when the news reached to me through the live stream. And the first thing I did, and every individual should do here on this live stream and anywhere else, is to remember the victims in their prayers. That's the first thing we can do. Secondly, is to condemn this act of terrorism. And it is not relevant. It is the religion, the race of this individual who has caused this horrific attack, this act of terrorism. That's irrelevant. We should call it for what it is, and that is an act of terrorism. To cause terror, to kill innocent people is an act of terrorism. So Greek Pet 22, what is your definition of terrorism? What is your definition? So I hope we understand that the first thing we should do is in fact is to pray for these innocent souls and pray for the families as well. Our thoughts are with the families, and the act terrorism is that any unlawful use of violence or intimidation, especially against civilians, okay, is an act of terrorism. That's an act of terrorism. And it saddens me that this has not yet been called an act of terrorism? Are we waiting for the name of this individual? Are we waiting for the religion? Okay, so uh, okay, so why hasn't it been called an act of terrorism? Why hasn't it been called out an act of, if you ask me, I will say to you it's an act of terrorism. I don't need to know who the individual is. I don't need to know their religion. I don't need to know their background. I don't need to know their race. It's an act of terrorism. That's what it is. And who is one of my own? Alex Dangas. Who is one of my own? Where's the evidence? And how do you know he's one of mine's? How do you know he's one of mine's? Alex Dangas, what do you mean by he's one of yours? That's a personal choice for you to eat pork. You want to eat pork, good luck. There's no harm in it. Doesn't affect me, you eating pork. You can eat horse as well if you want. It does not affect me. So he is an Islamic scholar who is saying if you don't follow, this will keep happening. Follow what? And who is this Islamic scholar? Where is the evidence? Who is this Islamic scholar? And why is he one of mine? You said he's one of yours. Why is he one of mine? How is this Islamic scholar who's allegedly made this statement, how is he one of mine? What do you mean by one of yours? What does that even mean, one of yours? Callum, it's not a Muslim country, it's a Christian country. Baza 132187. What did I say regarding the Manchester incident? Yes, I'm talking to you, Greek. And if it was um, if it, Callum, if it was a Muslim country, why is it no longer a Christian country? If it was a Christian country, why is it no longer a Christian country? What's happened to make it no longer a Muslim country, Callum? Greek Pete says, I only know what you know. Okay. Not exactly you, he is a Muslim. No, that's what you said. You said one of yours. You said um, one of mine. So looking at your picture, would it be okay if I called you a pedophile and said that you are Hugh Edwards, who, for example, today was charged on 3 counts of child, 3 counts of pedophilia? Would it be okay for me to call him one of yours, one of your kind? Would that be okay? Am I allowed to do that? Okay, well, if you're okay with that, then that's fine. I'm not okay with it. So, whoever this scholar you're referring to has said this, then he certainly does not represent me. If you want to be represented by Hugh Edwards, that's your choice, and good luck to you. Good luck to you. As for me, no, no, thank you. footballer reporter, nobody's ignoring you. Yeah, so the person who mentioned that was a Christian country, why is it no longer a Christian country? What's happened, Callum? Where's Callum gone? Callum, are you still here? You meant to be responding to me. Baza, I'm coming back to you. Okay, I've not seen your message after that, so let me just see if I can scroll and see your message. No hate, just my opinion. No hate, just my opinion. Uh, no, you said that England England is a Muslim country now, I'm afraid. But why is it a Muslim country? And why is it no longer? Why is it no longer a Christian country? What's happened, Callum? What's happened to England? Why is it no longer a Christian country? Are you able to answer that? Okay, so are you able to answer that? And where is the evidence that Islam is being forced upon other people? Okay, and as for um, uh, Baza 13187, I didn't jump to any conclusions regarding the attacks in the Manchester airport incident. I didn't jump to any conclusion. I said we can only work with what's the evidence that we have in front of us, and in that context, the individual who's face down on the floor, who's harmless at that stage, should not have been kicked in the face and stamped. And I think that's an opinion that's been echoed widespread. However, what I did mention live on my live stream, and people, some disagreed with me, was that we need to wait to see events leading up to the incident, and that was my verdict. And then I also mentioned that we leave this incident with the police, and they will deal with it, and whoever's held responsible will be held accountable. So I didn't jump to any conclusions. Furthermore, since the incident that happened, that took place, I only responded 4 days after the actual incident, because I don't normally. This station, this platform is for education purposes. I don't react to such incidents, but people are adamant. What is your opinion? So answered. So Baza, that's the answer for you. So Lynn, you're saying what's Hugh Edwards got to do with anything? Uh, what's Hugh Edwards got to do with anything? Is you need to ask the individual who put in the comments that it's your kind that said it will keep happening. I said to him, what keeps happening? What's going to keep happening? Do you understand? So why should somebody who calls out for terrorism be my kind? I've never once called out for terrorism. I've never once called out for violence. I've never once called out for spreading hatred. So why should that individual represent me? Just because I'm a Muslim? 1, 2, 3, your people tell lies. Okay. I'm just saying it's always people carrying these horrific attacks. Yes, Islam. Okay. So you're saying that all these horrific attacks that happen are Islam. Okay. So something happens in America, attacks that happen in America or elsewhere in the world, What would you say regarding them? Are they also Islam as well? We don't know who the attacker was. Harry Mom Odd, I think you've just come on. I've been here uh, talking about this for the last 1 hour. Thank you, RG Michael. Alex Dangus says, I am getting sick of people saying it's a Christian country. And it's a Church of England. The official religion is Church of England. It is a Christian country. Yeah, so what we're saying is that religion is irrelevant. This person who has caused this horrific act of terrorism, uh, you know, should be banged away and never allowed to be freed again, and never should see the daylight again. Okay, so the religion is not is relevant. The religion is not relevant. That's what we're saying. And is there anybody on this live stream that would call this an act of terrorism? Would you call it an act of terrorism? Anybody here? Just give me a yes or a no answer. Okay. Yes. Okay. So would you call today's attacks horrific acts of terrorism? Call them would you call it an act of terrorism? He said, Allahu Akbar. Why were you there? Did you hear this? Okay, that's fine. So majority of you are saying, okay, so if he was known by M, he was known by M16. So let's go into let's just go into GBN News and see what the headline is. 2 children killed and 9 others injured in Southport stabbings, with 6 in critical condition. That's the headline. Understand? And if we go to Daily Mail, knife horror, 2 dead, 2 children dead, 11 people hurt in Southport rampage, 6 kids and 2 adults fighting for life. There's the headline for Daily Mail. Okay, that's the headline for the Daily Mail. Exactly, it's irrelevant whether the individual was a Muslim or not a Muslim, whether he was an atheist, whoever he was, um, it's irrelevant. Let's go to Daily Express. Two children dead and nine Two children dead and nine injured in horrific Southport stabbing rampage. There's not any mention of terrorism. Okay, there's no mention of terrorism. Yes, I'm disappointed. I'm disappointed with the media. With these, I've showed you the BBC. I've showed you GBN News. I've showed you um, all the other channels. I've showed you the headlines. These are live headlines, and they, they're not calling it an act of terrorism. Why? What are they waiting for? This is our country, Harry. It's my country as well. I was born here. I was born here. I love England. You understand? And Daisy, who's what are you on about? Whose couldn't care less attitude? What are you referring to? Somebody in the group? We started off with a prayer. We started off with a prayer, and we said our prayers, our thoughts are for these people, for the victims and their families. We started off with a prayer. I don't need to keep repeating myself. Okay, I have said that we condemn every form of violence. We don't need to wait. We don't need to wait for the individual's name or religion to be revealed and then call it for what it is. Because irrespective of his religion, his race, his name, it is an act of terrorism. It is an act of terrorism. Uh, yes, Desperate Dan, you can start off by investigating our mosque. You're more than welcome. You're more than welcome to come to our mosque first. So they're controlled by the government. Okay, that's fine. So they will. So are you saying they will call it terrorism when the government tells them to call it a terrorism, an act of terrorism? Is this what you're saying? Let's check. Let me check one more. Maybe somebody from Sky will call it out for what it is. It's an act of terrorism. It's an act of terrorism, so call it an act of terrorism. Why are you waiting for the identity or the religion or the name of the individual to be revealed and then you're going to call it out for what it is? That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. It's an act of terrorism. These okay, these media outlets should be ashamed of themselves. Well, there's nearly 200 people. I don't think they're bored, but if you're bored, Carl, then you can jog along. You can jog along. I'm sure Sky News will call it for what it is. Okay. Southport stabbing, two children killed and six in critical condition after major incident. So no, nobody's calling it out for what it is. Walaikum salam from Albania. How are you? I hope you're well. Everything is good. So we're going to continue with our lesson, and we were discussing about social media. And if anybody wishes to continue talking about and texting about the incident, then yes, you're more than welcome to continue on the live stream. And I will once again generically speak and say that every individual should condemn this horrific act of terrorism, and our prayers and thoughts are with the families of the victims. No, I don't think. If Christians get their act together and start practicing their religion, then you've got nothing to worry about. Our prayers and thoughts, if you're genuine people with a genuine heart, then why are you not sending your prayers and thoughts to the families? Okay. So who does Peter Bradley 24? I am more interested in hundreds of Muslims who hate the UK, our armed forces, our culture. So why are you focusing on a minority? Why don't you look at the majority who love this country? Ryan, I've already replied. Okay, so Rifa, what's your response? What's the alternative? Okay, TR Daz, can you just respond again? Can you just put that message? Because I didn't see the message. Okay, so as I've mentioned, you can continue on the live stream, uh, and I'm going to continue with our lesson, which we started yesterday, and we were talking about the etiquettes of social media, the etiquettes of social media, and the importance of having control over social media. And we mentioned that um, there are many pros and cons to the social media, and you have a choice. You can, like everything, there is good and there's bad, but we have been gifted with intellect, and through that intellect, we have a choice, and we hope to make the right choices. Okay, so being a Muslim is a choice. Okay, if somebody wants to be a Muslim, they need to have that sincere Islam in their hearts to be a sincere Muslim. You can't force Islam upon somebody. And then you have a choice of to be a Muslim or a no Muslim. And there are benefits, okay, in certain aspects of social media. So I just said that it's a blessing for as long as we take the benefits in social media. As I mentioned, there are many benefits, and they're also tested on the same network. You will also be tested as well. Now, some of the ill effects, okay, but we'll mention some of the ill effects of the social media. But at this stage, let me mention the ill effects of it. If we find most people are engaged in it in some shape or form, we are all on it, whether it's WhatsApp, Instagram, TikTok, each one of us, we all use social media. And the main purpose of it was to socialize, to communicate with others. Okay, so the mobile phone, the main purpose of that was for it to be a phone, to ring somebody, okay, to use it as a phone. So the main purpose of it was to socialize, to communicate with others. And that's why it's called a mobile phone. It's a telephone. But today, the use of this little device is no longer a phone. It's not really used as a phone. Okay, it's used for many other things. So with the invention of the mobile phone, have gone many other things. Okay, so people, for example, they don't need to buy a television because they can watch everything on their phone. They don't need an alarm clock because it's on their phone. They don't need a calendar. It's on their phone. They don't need a diary. It's on their phone. Okay. So as I mentioned, the main purpose of the mobile phone was to communicate with others. But today we use it mainly to as a tool for entertainment. Okay. And to put a certain agenda through. And people are getting gratification and entertainment through it. And that's why most people they will sit for hours on end, and it all leads to an addiction. So people are not able to make time for their families, are not able to do simple things in in their lives because they are addicted to the mobile phone. It becomes an addiction. It becomes an addiction. And that addiction then leads to many other things. Okay, obesity, illness, isolation, not communicating with others, etc. And sadly, we don't realize the importance of two things. Number one is number one is one second, I'm just reading that. Is time. Time is a great blessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the second is health. And these two things, yeah, because we're talking about the pros and cons. And we're not here wasting time doing chit chat. We're delivering a lesson on how to control the usage of social media. That's what we're doing, how to control ourselves, how to stay safe on social media. And people are listening. If I'm wasting my time, Jojo, why are you here for? Jog along. If I'm wasting my time, you need to jog along. Do you understand? You shouldn't be here commenting because all you're doing is every comment that you're putting, you're allowing other people to come on. Now, families are also, as a result, being destroyed. Okay, marriages are being broken. Okay, it's become such an addiction that individuals are no longer giving time to their families and on their mobile phones. Okay, and literally everything is being done last minute. So people are playing on the mobile phones and the social media. They're busy trying to get an agenda through, spreading hatred, racism. Okay, um, and giving less time to their families. That they're okay to sit and play games on game consoles. However, they've got no time to ring their families. Do you understand? So when it's Salah time, people are praying last minute, rushing to the masjid in the last minute. When it's time to attend school, people are going to school late. Why? Oh, because they were on the phone all night. So there's no control, there's no discipline. And as a result of that, when you have no discipline, that's good for you, Hamas. Well done. Then it's going to have a detrimental effect on your health, of course. Do you understand? And in your family. No, thank you very much. Yes, like I said, it is a tool to make you isolated, and it's killing off social life. Do you understand? And it has had a toll on people's mental health. Definitely, it's had a major toll on people's mental health. People who go out less, who order everything online at home and get things delivered, who pay their bills online, direct debit, etc. So it does have an effect on people's health, because there was a time where, prior to this, before the mobile phone, people would go out to do their shopping. They would go out and pay their bills at the post office. Okay, but I think the mobile phone has, in fact, made people become isolated and lazy, and there's less social interaction. Okay, somebody said, yeah. So, and there are people living two lives. There are people who live a social life, and that's where, for example, that's where there's a dire need. Okay, I pay my own bills, Nick. I pay my own bills. I pay taxes as well. Okay, okay. Do you pay your bills, Nick? Do you pay your bills? I'm a teacher by profession, and I'm a lecturer at the university as well. That's my day job. I'm a teacher by profession, and I do pay my council tax as well. Yeah. Okay, so that's irrelevant. What subject I teach? I teach at school. I've never, I've never ever had, I've never taken any type of or any kind of. Yes, I am. We are from the Salaf. I've never ever taken any kind of benefit. Okay, I've never been on tax credits. I've never signed on. I've never been on any disability benefit. I never have. Alhamdulillah. Is it time, mate? End of stream, log off. Gunwin, I think it's time for your bed. I think it's time for your bed. Nick, that's fine. I don't need to sit here and convince you that I pay my bills. And even if I did, that's irrelevant. Have I taught, you mean, Kitab al-Tawhid? Yes. I taught it 7 years ago, 6 or 7 years ago. Okay, so but since then I've taught other books as well. Yeah, yeah, I might do that, Sammy. I might do that. I'm more than happy to do that. I'm here sitting, so I've got absolutely nothing to worry about. I would worry about the individual who's caused this terrorism, this act of terrorism. And it's sad to see how you've just suddenly jumped to the conclusion. You've jumped to the conclusion that this individual is a Muslim. And I mean, do you condemn these attacks? Do you condemn these attacks? Yeah, but it's fine because I had a choice. I had a choice either to come on live like I normally do every Monday evening. I come on live. I have a live stream where I teach, and people come and they study and they benefit. Okay. And the other choice was not to come on. And I knew what the implications were going to be. I knew because I was teaching at Ikra Academy earlier on, and we had over 300 people. We had over 300 people uh, on the live stream. And yes, there's absolutely no need for hatred. I mean, this energy that you are putting in sending hate messages, would it not be far more beneficial that you use that energy in sending prayers, in condemning the attacks, in condemning the individual who's done that, not blaming the religion, not blaming Islam, not blaming the mosques? How does that benefit you? And in fact, every time you're spreading your hatred, your racism, your fascism, all you're doing is you're inviting other people on board. I've got absolutely nothing to do. Whoever this individual turns out to be, irrespective of uh, the race and religion, is got nothing to do with me. I have absolutely nothing to do with him. And where's your evidence that that's the name? Where's the evidence? Who's taught you that? I don't need to prove anything to anybody. I don't need to prove anything to anybody. Well, what do you want me to prove? Okay, so you want me to get the Quran out, and what do you want me to do? Do you want me to read Quran to you? Do you want me to read Quran to you? So if you can just tell me, and then inshallah I can read some Quran to you. And I don't mind explaining the Quran. Do you want me to? Do you want me to read Quran to you? Okay, so let's say, let me get this Quran here. Okay, there we are. So this is the copy of the Quran. Okay, and you've said, prove to me. You said, prove to me that Islam does not promote violence. Okay, and by the way, I'm not going to relate this to anything. I'm just going to generally educate you. So if I, for example, open chapter number 7, okay, chapter number 7, okay, and let's say I go to verse 189, okay, 189, okay, where's 189? Okay, um, verse number. Let me just double check, and I will read some Quran to you, and then you can tell me if there's anything that sounds like promoting violence or terrorism. 7, okay, 99, Quran 7, 189, 7, 189, okay, okay, 32, right, so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He mentions in the Quran that من قتل نفسا بغير نفس أو فساد في الأرض فكأنما قتل الناس جميعا ومن أحيا فكأنما أحيا الناس جميعا. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He mentions in the Quran, I'm reading this to you directly from the Quran, okay? And then you can tell me where is the violence in this verse, okay? Somebody wants me to read Quran to them, so I'm going to read some Quran to them. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He mentions in the Quran, من قتل نفسا بغير نفس أو فساد في الأرض فكأنما قتل الناس جميعا ومن أحيا فكأنما أحيا الناس جميعا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He mentions in the Quran, in the noble Quran, that anybody who whoever so kills an innocent soul, okay, it is as though he has killed the entire mankind, and whoever saves one, it is as though he has saved mankind entirely. So whoever kills من قتل نفسا بغير نفس أو فساد في الأرض فكأنما قتل الناس جميعا. So anybody kills anybody innocent, any innocent person is killed, it is as though you have killed the entire mankind. ومن أحياها, and whoever ومن أحياها فكأنما, and whoever saves a life فكأنما أحيا الناس جميعا, it is as though they have saved them, have saved mankind. So this is our Quran. This is our Quran. Okay? And you can reference this yourself. And you can read it for yourself as well. And you can read it for yourself. It's there. So I hope that answers your question. You said that prove to me in the Quran. Okay? I've given you one verse, and you will find nothing but guidance in the Quran. You will find nothing but guidance in the Quran. I'm glad, Ollie, that you've called it an act of terrorism, because our media and news outlets, they're not calling it that. So I'm glad you have. Yeah. No, this is the English in here, okay, is sort of old English, classical English. So I thought I would read for you the easier English, just to make you understand. Yeah. So, oh, by the way, you can go to Quran.com. You can go to Quran.com and you can order a Quran. Yeah, you can go order a Quran. Go to Quran.com, and by all means you can order a Quran free of charge, and you can read it there. Okay. Healthy, have you come on now? You've joined the live stream late, which is why I've already mentioned what my thoughts are on that. What is how are you Muslim women issues? Hope you're well. The discussion was the etiquettes of using social media. Alhamdulillah, that's good. Yes, it's the weather as well. It's the weather as well, isn't it? Alhamdulillah, we've had a lot of new people coming on today's live stream, and most of them, Alhamdulillah, have agreed. And you know, we're here to educate the people. Yeah, we've had new people, new followers have come, and they're learning about Islam. We don't need moderators. We don't need moderators. We've got moderators, but we don't need moderators. It's fine. people are upset. People are sad. I'm saddened myself, upset. Which is why I began the program with prayers for those innocent people who have been murdered. And if people really cared about those people who lost their lives, then you wouldn't really be bothered. You wouldn't have the energy to send hatred. You'd be praying for them. You would be praying for them. You wouldn't have the energy to want to know, desperately want to know and believe that this must and this has to be a Muslim, this has to be an act of terrorism. It has to be. Yeah. And I've called it out for what it is. I've called and remember this channel, and you can follow this channel. And you can follow this channel. And I've showed you evidence. I've showed you evidence. I myself have called this out an act of terrorism. I've called it an act of terrorism, an evil act of terrorism. That's what I'm calling it to be. And I don't care. It's irrelevant, the person, this individual's race, his religion. It's irrelevant. It's irrelevant. What is relevant is that it was an act of terrorism. And I hope and pray that you remember these very news outlets for what you watch. Okay? And why they haven't called it out as an act of terrorism. GBN News. You've all heard of GBN News. What's the headline in GBN News? Why isn't there any mention of terrorism? GBN News. There's no mention of terrorism. What are they waiting for? What are they waiting for? Let's go to Daily Mail. Daily Mail, they like posting a lot of positive stuff about Islam, don't they? Right, there you go. Knife horror 2 dead. That's the headline. Again, there's no mention of terrorism. Let's go to BBC. Maybe they might call it an act of terrorism. Again, there's no mention of terrorism. No one is saying the Southport thing is terror. Let it kick off one winner. Southport. Dangerous times. Yes, it is. Let's go for example. I mean, Daily Express would definitely call it. Daily Express. Daily Express. They would definitely call it an act of terrorism. I mean, again, there's no mention of terrorism. Okay, so why haven't they called it an act of terrorism? You understand? That's my issue, and you're coming here, and I would ask you, do you condemn? Kate, your views on today's stabbings, do you condemn? Do you condemn these acts of terrorism? Each person, yes or no, do you condemn what's happened today? Yes or no, do you condemn what's happened? Yes, I do. I've condemned it, and I've called it an act of terrorism. I've called it an act of terrorism, and I've showed you on the platforms. I've showed you GBN News, Daily Express, Daily Mail. I've showed you all of these platforms, and not one of them has called it an act of terrorism. Why have these news channels, which we pay the BBC, we give our TV license, we buy these newspapers, Daily Mail, Daily Express, we watch a GBN News, we watch Talk TV. Why have they not called it an act of terrorism? What are they waiting for? What are they waiting for? What are they waiting for? What is the issue? Why can they not call it an act of terrorism? And I tell you why. And I tell you why. Because they're waiting for the identity of that individual. If this person turns out not to be a Muslim, these headlines will not change. These headlines will not change. These headlines will not change. However, as soon as these headlines, it is confirmed that this individual is a Muslim, or he was a Muslim, of course, then you will see how then the headlines change to terrorism. Why can't you call it an act of terrorism right now? No, but what would you call it then? So a dream works. What would you call it? Shall we play it down? Shall we all play it down? Shall we not condemn it? Shall we all play it down? Yes, exactly. Shall we just all play it down? And just, yeah, define terrorism. Okay, define terrorism. So, for example, if I go into Google, okay, if I go into the word terrorism, let's see what is the definition we get of terrorism. So we go to meaning of terrorism, and this is what we get: the unlawful use of violence and intimidation, especially against civilians. Okay, that's the answer that you would get. So that's an act of terrorism. Okay, if you want to go to the dictionary, the unlawful use of violence or threats to intimidate or coerce a civilian population or government with the goal of furthering political, social, and ideological objectives. So there we are. There's the definition. Okay. Okay. So I've got my evening prayer. I've got my Maghrib prayer in a few minutes. Would you agree with that? Would you agree with that? Let me. I think the camera is reversed. So if I let's do mirror. Okay. So would you agree with that definition? Here we are. Would you agree with that? Okay, so that's fine. So you've got the definition there. Okay, and that is how we define terrorism. And I don't care about the terminology or the technical terms. Terror is terror. So call it terrorism, irrespective of the person who's carried it out. Corin, why was it not a terrorist attack? Corin O'Reilly, can you explain? Because then I'll be leaving because I've got my evening prayer. Why was it not an act of terrorism? Why? Why? Why should we not call it an act of terrorism? And what should we call it? If why are we not allowed to call it terrorism? What should we call it instead? Okay. And so what if this person just wanted to carry it out? He wanted to. He's been playing some games. He's been, you know, just was wanted to go out and kill innocent people. How do you define that? Yes, we're going to be praying for those kids. We're going to be praying for those families, of course. Yeah, so we'll leave it to the police. We'll wait for the details to change. We'll wait for the details to come out. But what I don't want, and this is what my argument was about, if this is an act of terrorism, call it an act of terrorism. That's it. Yes, enough is enough. Call it out to be an act of terror. What are you waiting for? And when the name of this individual is revealed, okay, and if it turns out to be, um, let's say his name is Darren Burrows, Darren Burrows. Okay, so this person, this 17-year-old, turns out to be Darren Burrows. Will the headlines change? Will they call it an act of terrorism? Or let's say um, tomorrow his name turns out to be this Ali Shakatari, as people are saying. Okay, will the headlines change then to an act of? So what's the difference between the two? What's the difference? Why is it that if David Burrows carries out these horrific acts of terror on innocent people, we shouldn't call it an act of terrorism? However, if it's Ali Shakatari or somebody, right, a Muslim name, then we call it an act of terror. What's the difference? What's the difference? Why should there be a difference? Whatever his name is, whatever his name was, why should there be a difference? If it's David, if it's Edward, if it's Leroy, whoever it is, it's not an act of terrorism. But if it's a Muslim name, then it's an act of terrorism. Yeah. So anyway, I'm going to be leaving, and once again, let me request each one of you who is on the live stream to remember the families and the victims in your prayers. Take some time out and pray for these people. Pray for the families, of course. Okay. And my prayers are with the victims, with the families. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala Jalla wa ala grant them istiqamah, grant them patience, and may the culprit be held accountable. May they throw the law at him. May he never be released again. May he never be allowed to come out and to see daylight again. And once again, our prayers are with the family and friends, and may justice prevail. May justice prevail. May justice prevail. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. جزاك الله خير for watching. I appreciate your patience. I know there's a lot of tension, but let us exercise that negative hatred and that energy we got inside of us and give some prayers. Yarn, hate, you should be shameful of yourself. Send some prayers to the families. Send some prayers. Go to the church tonight. They should open the church. Go to the mosque, go to the church, and say some prayers. Yeah, it's just, pray for them. That's all you can do. It's irrelevant whether he's from Cardiff, London, Ethiopia, Tanzania. That's irrelevant. The name is irrelevant. The religion is it's irrelevant. What is relevant is that tonight you raise your hands and you pray for those family and friends. That is what is relevant. You pray for them, and the rest you leave with the law of the land. From my side, I will call it an act of terrorism. It was an act of terrorism, irrespective of the person, his name, his religion, his race. It was an act of terrorism. Jazakallah khair for watching. May God bless you all. Thank you very, very much. May God bless you all, and hope to see you tomorrow's live stream, same time, where we'll be doing spoken Arabic. Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.